It was 10:42 p.m. on November 3rd, 2017, when the glittering calm of Dubai's luxury Palm Towers hotel shattered. Guests began flooding the front desk with frantic calls. There was screaming, desperate screaming, coming from Suite 2701. Some said it sounded like a woman begging for her life. Others swore they heard glass shatter and furniture slam against the walls. Security rushed upstairs, but by the time they reached the suite, the noise had stopped. Silence lingered in the hallway like a trap, and then the door opened just a crack. Standing there was Captain Adrian Blake, a 42-year-old commercial airline pilot, tall, clean-cut, his uniform still pressed, his face unsettlingly calm, too calm. He told them everything was fine, his accent clipped and professional, his eyes steady, but the smears of blood on his collar told a different story. When security pushed past him into the suite, the image froze them in their tracks. His wife, 34-year-old Leila Hassan, lay lifeless on the marble floor, her gown torn, bruises circling her neck. The champagne they had ordered hours earlier spilled across the carpet, and the glass skyline of Dubai glittered coldly through the suite's massive windows, as if mocking the horror within. What had begun as a glamorous evening for one of Dubai's most photographed couples ended in murder, and the story of how it unfolded would shake not just the city, but the aviation world across continents. Stay with me, because this isn't just about a violent night in a hotel suite. It's about lies told at 40,000 feet, hidden debts, forbidden affairs, and the possibility that Leila's death was not just a crime of passion, but the silencing of a woman who knew too much. Just 7 days earlier, Adrian and Leila had seemed like the perfect couple. He was a golden pilot, adored by passengers, respected by colleagues, the kind of man who wore his uniform like armor. She was a glamorous socialite, running a boutique fashion brand that catered to Dubai's elite. Together they looked untouchable, but behind the glossy photographs and champagne smiles, their marriage was crumbling. Friends remembered Leila whispering about Adrian's temper, how he would seize her, phone during layovers, accuse her of cheating, how his voice could turn sharp and violent behind closed doors. Adrian, meanwhile, told his fellow pilots that Leila was hiding things from him, financial secrets, maybe even someone else. Their relationship had become a pressure cooker, and on November 2nd, the lid would finally blow. Surveillance footage shows a couple checking into the Palm Towers that evening. Adrian still in his uniform after flying in from London, Leila radiant in an emerald gown. They smiled politely at reception, but in the elevator to the 27th floor, the cameras caught a different truth. Adrian's jaw clenched tight, Leila's arms crossed in defiance. There were no smiles now, just silent fury hanging between them. By 8:20 p.m., they entered Suite 2701, and from that moment on, the hours ticked toward tragedy. At 9:40 p.m., they ordered champagne. Witnesses later recalled hearing laughter, but just 20 minutes later the tone had shifted. At 10 p.m., guests in neighboring suites heard shouting. Then the first scream, a woman's voice sharp, terrified, begging. At 10:20 p.m., the sounds escalated. One guest later told investigators it was like someone being attacked, pleading for breath. At 10:42 p.m., security knocked on the door. Adrian opened it. Standing tall, steady, his uniform jacket still on, insisting nothing was wrong. But an hour later, when they returned for a welfare check, they found a scene that would haunt them forever. Leila on the floor, bruises ringing her neck, shattered glass near her head. Adrian sitting by the window, staring blankly at the city skyline with a half-empty champagne glass, as if he was already rehearsing his story. The arrest was immediate. Dubai police stormed the suite, handcuffed him, dragged him past the stunned luxury guests who whispered in horror as the headlines broke, "Pilot kills wife in Dubai hotel." But Adrian denied it all. He told investigators Leila had attacked him, that she threatened to ruin him, that she slipped, hit her head, and died. But the forensic evidence told another story. The bruises on her neck matched his grip, the fingerprints on the broken glass were his, and audio picked up, faintly from a hallway, captured her chilling last words. "Adrian, please stop." Investigators soon uncovered even darker truths. Adrian was drowning in gambling debts, losing his salary in underground casinos during layovers. He had affairs with flight attendants, one of whom testified that just weeks before the murder, Adrian had said he was done with his wife. Worse, Leila had already filed secret divorce papers and was preparing to expose his gambling and debt to his airline, a revelation that would have destroyed his reputation and cost him his pilot's license, his career, his identity. was that the real motive. Had Adrian strangled her not out of sudden rage, but cold calculation to silence her forever? The trial captivated the world. The prosecution called him a narcissistic pilot who couldn't stand losing control. The defense argued it was an accident. The courtroom was tense as witnesses described Leila's growing fear in the weeks before her death. Then came Adrian's own testimony. Looking directly at the judge, he said, "I love my wife. I never meant for this to happen. She pushed me too far and I snapped." The words chilled the court. It wasn't a confession of premeditation, but it was an admission of rage. In June 2018, the verdict came down. Adrian Blake sentenced to 25 years in a Dubai prison. He showed no emotion, no tears, just that same eerie calm he displayed when security first knocked on the door of Suite 2701. But here's where the story twists. Even from prison, Adrian insisted he was not the full story. He began telling interviewers that Leila had powerful enemies, that she was caught in Dubai business rivalries, that her death was convenient for others. He hinted that he was framed, that others were in that room, that he was simply the easiest man to blame. Was he deflecting, or was there truth hidden in his cryptic words? Some of Leila's closest friends later admitted she had been receiving threats before her death, anonymous calls, warnings to stay silent about deals she was involved in. Could it be that Adrian wasn't lying entirely? Could Leila's murder have been more than a husband's violent outburst? Could it have been a cover-up masked as a domestic crime? Today, Suite 2701 remains closed to guests. Staff avoid the 27th floor at night. Some whisper. They still hear faint screams in the hall. A reminder that money and status cannot shield anyone from tragedy. Adrian sits in prison, stripped of his wings, his name erased from aviation records. But he continues to write letters from his cell, each one claiming that the real story of what happened in that hotel suite has yet to be told, and that someone else, someone untouchable, should be behind bars instead of him. So what really happened on that November night? Was Leila Hassan the victim of a jealous husband's uncontrollable rage? Or was her death part of a larger scheme involving money, power, and secrets Dubai never wanted revealed? The truth may be darker than anyone imagined, and that is where part 2 begins, because investigators who revisited the case uncovered evidence that suggested Adrian may not have been acting alone, evidence that could rewrite the entire story of the Palm Towers murder. If you're still here, it means you want the truth just as much as I do. And trust me, what's coming next will change everything you think you know about this case. Subscribe now